All right, it is 5:30. We will get this city council meeting, regular city council meeting for the city of International Falls to order. Our first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you please join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Please note that two of our council members are absent, Councilor Holden and Councilor Kraus. Our first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. We have an addition. There was additional funds that were added to the International Falls claims. So Chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda with that addition.
So move.
We have a motion by Councilor Deitch. We have a second.
Second.
We have a second by Councilor Buller. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the question.
Aye. Aye.
And I will vote yes. Motion carries 3-0. Next, we'll go to the minutes of the November 1st meeting. Chair would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So move.
We have a motion by Councilor Buller. Do we have a second? We have a second by Councilor Deitch. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question.
Aye. Aye.
I'll vote yes. Motion carries 3-0. Go to the payments of claims. As I pointed out, that there is a different dollar amount on it than what was sent out in the packet. We'll go to the transfers for the city of International Falls, going to the 401 Permanent Improvement Fund of $66,666.66. That's coming from the 601 water and the 603 sewer in equal amounts of $33,333.33. We have funds going to the 403 Reserve for Capital Outlay. That's $25,760.42. That's coming from the 601 water in the amount of $19,136.17. And the 603 sewer in the amount of $6,624.25 for a total transfers of $92,427.08. City of International Falls claims is going to be $1,275,391.32. Airport Commission claims of $3,749.43. And International Falls Public Library Board claims of $18,704.01 for a total accounts payable and claims of $1,297,844.76. Chair would entertain a motion to adopt that resolution.
So move.
We have a motion by Councilor Deitch. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councilor Buller. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the question.
Aye. Aye.
And I'll vote yes. Motion carries 3-0. Go to audience. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to come forward? Close.
Oh, we're on. Okay. First, before I begin, I want you all to understand I'm not here on behalf of Bacchus. I'm here as a citizen of International Falls. I have some questions and some things I'd like to talk with you about regarding the Cary Park project. I had a conversation with Betty earlier this week, just a short one, and she told me that there's some information coming. I also read that in the paper, that there's information that's expected as to what it's going to take to run this facility. I understand that the funding to build it is coming out of a bond, but then there are many questions within the city from people that I have talked with as far as how the residents of our city are going to pay for this ongoing. The maintenance, the operations, it's going to be significant. So we're looking for information regarding that. And I'm wondering, when are you expecting to hear, or when do you expect to hear back on that report that'll tell what kinds of expenses are going to be involved and over the long term as well as right up front?
We have a contract coming with is it ISG? Is that the name of the company? ISG, they will be doing a pro forma on what it will cost to run the building, how much we would have to charge the daycare facilities to rent and lease space from the city to keep that on, how much we would have to charge for rec hockey to be able to utilize ice time, how much, the kitchen would have to be rented for groups to utilize that. So there's a whole host of things that are being looked at on that. In addition to that, what we're already spending to maintain Cary Park as it is right now, we believe that the city is funding more of Cary Park than what is being covered by rec hockey and all these things. We want to make sure that if we have uses of that facility, they're being charged correctly so that we can have more activities in there and there is less of a cost directly to the residents and more of a cost to the users.
Okay. So it's more than just the arena, but the building where the gymnasium and all of
it's
those.
all one building.
All in one. Okay.
And part of that is so that we understand that we have lots of pieces in our community, like the senior center is over here and rec hockey utilizes just the arena and it's just a single use building. It's only being used for hockey. We want to make sure that that can be used in multiple different facets, whether it's for weddings, events. We want to make sure that that building can be utilized by more residents more times out of the year than just hockey from October until March.
Right.
So yes, we're trying to utilize the space much more often than what it currently gets used for.
Sure. And the people who are putting this report together will recognize, of course, that like use of the kitchen and the for family gatherings and for events and things, that's all contingent on what people come in and they're going to say, hey, I need the kitchen or what have you. So it won't be an expected income, but it will be what's going to have to happen.
What we would have to charge per event to make sure that those costs are covered.
Okay. But also recognizing that there's really no way to predict the number of events that will actually happen.
There's always those truths. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So when do you expect to hear back from them? Did you say?
We don't have an expected date on that information as of yet.
Okay. Can you tell me when you have that information, are you going to meet with the public or what's the process? What happens with the public opinion or input on this?
Absolutely. Great question. So as soon as we have an understanding of what Kraus Anderson believes the estimated cost for the building is and how much the maintenance is going to be and how much money's, and we are able to figure out and say, this is what we spend on Cary Park right now. This is what we put into all of those things. Before the city council moves forward on any of this, there will be a public hearing. And I think that's one of the things that we've struggled with in the past is because if we don't do our due diligence to make sure that we know what the costs are, what the long-term costs are, we can't show it to anybody because it makes us look foolish. How much is it going to cost? We don't know. That's why we haven't had a public hearing, a public meeting to have people come in and give their 2 cents. We want to make sure that the community is well educated on what the cost to the taxpayers is going to be, what the cost will be to build it, if there's any additional funds that have to come from the city to build it other than what we're requesting from state bonding. So yes, before we move forward with any project, we will definitely be having a public hearing, and that timeline only got pushed up as fast as it did. And me and all of the city staff is 100% cognizant that this got pushed up a little bit faster than what we had expected. But when the governor and the state legislature is saying that we have a very, very good chance of being able to get the $15 million to build the facility, but we don't get the money until we can produce the plan and we can produce some of the infrastructure to do that.
Sure.
It got pushed up a little bit faster.
Mhm.
But again, we can't receive that money until we're able to prove to the public and to ourselves that we can fund that building long-term.
Right. And I don't get the feeling from the people that I've spoken with in the public that they're concerned about the 15 million that it's going to take to build it. We understand that that's coming from bonding. There is a cost for that ultimately, but I think what more people are concerned about is what it's going to take to run it once it's up. And they want to be fully aware of it. I think you might be surprised at the number of people who don't know very much about this plan at all.
I would imagine that there's not a ton of people that were knowledgeable on it. However, we started this literally 3 years ago by having public conversations about recreation in our community. It was an open dialogue. We had posted meetings. First one, we had a community meeting about locating a dog park in the community. We found out from the residents after having a town hall that that was not any interest when we had our infrastructure at our other parks, playgrounds, and facilities were deteriorating. About that same time, a couple weeks down the road, we had gotten a study that showed that Cary Park Arena was in dire repair because of the way that the building had been changed for use over the years from natural ice to artificial ice, and having an additional concession stand and additional buildings or add-ons to the building that wasn't its initial use. So then we found out that we were in to fix the building of somewhere between $1 million and $1.5 million. Then we started having the conversations. If we have a problem with specifically Cary Park Arena, and we just had a meeting with other people that have outlined that we have a lot of infrastructure issues at our parks and playgrounds and recreation at the way that the rec department is run, which the city is part of. It became a much larger conversation. So then we did a meeting. It was a public meeting about recreation, where we had outlined all of the activities that the rec department does, along with trails and access and the parks and from our Riverside Park, Carson Loopy, and all of them. And we found out that they're all deteriorating. And we had some long-term goals that came out of that meeting that we had met with the public. And what we had heard is we don't have anywhere that has an indoor walking track for a community that lives half the year in the cold. We don't have an indoor walking track for people to utilize. We also don't have a gymnasium that meets the requirements for the basketball players in the community. There's lots of games that have to be canceled, or that there isn't practice space for the different tiers of basketball teams. We heard that, we just heard a lot of stuff like that. So from there, we took all that information at that meeting, we compiled it all onto a spreadsheet of the things that we were missing in our community. And then we put out a Facebook post and we said, if we were to rehab Cary Park, what would you like to see? We ended up getting tons of comments from trampoline parks to ice skating trails to more concession, a place that you can have a concert, all kinds of different things that people in the community were asking for. We compiled all that information and we gave that to Widseth, which is our city engineer. And we said, if we were to relocate the footprint of Cary Park, what of all of these services that have came in from the public of International Falls, what can we get in that space? Since then, it's been about a year of them working on the project and trying to figure out so that we can then take all the information that's came in from public comment, public meetings, public input, and be able to give that back to the community and say, this is a couple of options that we have to invest into Cary Park in the future. And so we have had public meetings and we intend on having more public meetings, but until we know what those costs are, before we know what any of that is, all we can say is we've taken all your information and we're trying to compile that so we have something to offer and show you guys. And all of those have came in public meetings in this room through Public Works, through Committee of the Whole meetings. We've been talking about this for 2 years, but because there has only been a handful of actions that have had to come forward to the council as a whole, which would be some of the budgetary things that we've had to do with hiring Kraus Anderson as a consulting engineer on the project. There hasn't been a lot of stuff because we haven't received a lot. We have a couple of artist renditions, but besides that, we don't have something to show the public. But we haven't hid any of this. It's all been in public meetings, and we had, up until, you know, that we had asked for bonding on this issue. It's the first time anyone's came forward other than the people that were involved in the process and giving the city money to help build this project. So
I understand that, but I also think that the responsibility kind of rests back then on the city council, that if people aren't responding when you're talking about a $15 million project, then maybe it's time to look at the way that you're communicating to the public and what you're putting out there. People don't know. I would like to, in effort to partner with the city council, to offer to have the Bacchus Auditorium open, that you could come and just share information, not to be in the line of fire for questions or things like that necessarily, but to share information about what this project is all about, what the costs incurred so far have been and what they've been for, and what the plan is to go forward. Now, perhaps it's best that that meeting happen after you hear back from the company with the anticipated costs of what it's going to take to run the meeting. Or to run the center. Maybe that's the best way to do it. But I really think that we need to make the community aware of what's happening. Our population is going down. It continues to decrease. We continue to see increased needs at our social services within the community. Community cafe, I can pitch for that one. We're serving about 300 people a night every Tuesday and Thursday. The food shelf needs are going up. Servants of shelter are serving more people. That tells me something too. And I think before we look at the expenses that are going to be incurred to maintain this large of a complex, we need to talk to our public and see truly what do they want? What are they willing to support? So I would like to invite the council to please consider coming to Bacchus and sharing, whether it's, if you have a slideshow, you have some of these great artist renderings that have been produced. If you want to show some of that on the slides, we'll drop the screen and set up a slideshow and people can see what it is that you're looking at. But I also think that they deserve to know the money that's been spent already, the money that will be spent, and where it's come from.
May I ask?
Yes.
Ed, we're not holding anything back from anybody.
No.
But unless we can answer your questions, it's no point in having a meeting. I mean, if you say how much it's going to cost to run it, we don't know yet. We got to find that out, and then we're willing to, be able to give public information that's correct and not just a stab in the dark. So we need to get our stuff together first before we can give out information. Everything that we know so far that we've done so far has all been public and given out. We've never held anything secret. We're not doing anything behind anybody's back.
No.
And we're not going to go ahead with this project either if it's not affordable. But still, to research it is the time that we're doing right now. So we need that time to research it fully and have some numbers and actually some concrete things that we can tell you and answer your questions, because otherwise we just can't answer the questions.
And I think one of the things that you're bringing up, and number one, I'm sincerely thankful for the conversation and how we're having a back and forth one. It's fantastic, and I like this venue for these types of conversations. One of the things that, and I had said this at our last council meeting, and it's difficult. It's very difficult for the city council to try to do a project that is a $15 million project and not have some funds that have been expended. But again, those are all things that are already in our budget, and it's planning, it's road construction, it's all of the, there are fees that have been incurred, and I don't know if specifically it's 50,000, if it's 60,000. I don't know exactly what that number is. It's all budgeted. We were able to find that out and go back in and see how much we have already expended to the project. But if we don't do our due diligence by spending $50,000 or $60,000, which is an outrageous number for me, I get that.
Mm-hmm.
However, in an $11 million budget that the city has, it is small in the big picture, especially if we can utilize that as the city's cost towards a $15 million building or facility down the road, which will benefit daycare facilities, which will help be able to have people go to jobs, which is one of the things that we're struggling with in our community. People can't go to work because we don't have daycare facilities. So that's one of the things that we have been trying to work on, and we put that into this space. So yes, there are dollar amounts that are associated with it, but they're all budgeted items. It's not like any of these things are coming out of, we're going deeper and deeper into debt just because we're doing it. These are all budgeted for projects. And if we didn't look at the project to how we're going to fix Cary Park Arena or Cary Park as a whole, it would be another project in the community that may or may not happen. We do have other projects that are on shelves, but right now I think we're in such an interesting spot with the $1 trillion infrastructure bill that just got passed by the federal government. If we don't have projects on the shelf to do them, if we didn't look at Cary Park and we say, well, we're not able to do it now, we may be able to do it in 3 to 4 years, we'd have no access to be able to get some of those grants and loans to fix the stuff that we need to do in our community. I had somebody ask me today if we're going to be able to use any of that infrastructure money to fix some of our sewer and water. The reality is we may be able to. We're fighting every other city, state, and county in the United States for that money, but we have to have these projects that have been engineered sitting on the shelf so that we can say, this is what we want to do. Because if we don't have that legwork done, A, we can't tell the public how much it's going to cost to do the project. And number two, we can't get the money because everything is on a short time frame. We have to be able to have something on the shelf so that we can show people. And we've really tried to do our due diligence on this one. This project started with Mayor Anderson as the mayor. I believe Keisha Pearson was on the council. And since then, we've had Chelsea on the council. Now we've had Mike on the council. So we're 4 councils in on this one project. And we have openly discussed it. We've had, I get frustrated about it too, because I do get phone calls. But the more we can explain that as soon as we have the information, we're going to show you, but we don't want to look foolish either. We don't want to say, well, we're going to do it, but we have no clue. So. Right.
And I agree. And please understand that I'm not here objecting to the project, but I think our community needs to be aware of what's happening, and they want to feel like they have a voice. And they need to know what they can expect down the road on their tax bills. That it's not going to come without cost to the community, and they want to know what it is. So do I. So I truly invite you to consider Bacchus. This room it's great, but it only holds a certain number of people, and there are people who, for reasons, want spacing. So if you would consider, let us know when you have that information available, and we'll host a place for you to come, and you can share all of this information with the community, please.
Thank you.
Thank you for offering.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience who would like to come forward? All right, you'll also have an opportunity at the end of the meeting. We'll go on to old business. Chair would entertain a motion to remove from the table the committee of the whole recommendation to consider the snow and ice policies.
So moved.
So we have a motion to remove from the table by Counselor Buller. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Counselor Deitch. Any discussion? Call the question?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll vote yes. Motion carries 3-0. So this moves it before us. One of the things that you can see in your packet that has been added is a draft letter. City Administrator, you want to give us a quick outline of why we have added that to the policy?
I can, Mayor. Thank you.
Mike.
Give it a mic.
Mayor and Council. In working with the Department Director of Public Works and the City Attorney, going through the process, the snow and ice is going to be removal is going to be different with the 53 project being completed. That's going to be new in that area. Most of these items are in our current charter. These aren't new rules, but they're rules that haven't been enforced. So we want to educate and inform our citizens what the rules are. And so therefore, by putting this policy, which is just reiterating what's in our code of ordinances in a format easily to read, we will educate the individuals on how to properly handle the snow removal in the snow events in the ice. And therefore, when we see a violation, we would be sending this letter outlining, what they've done, that would be in violation, and showing them, educating them, and then moving forward from there.
All right. Chair would entertain a motion to adopt the snow and ice control policies along with the draft letter for first-time violators.
So move.
We have a motion by Counselor Deitch. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Counselor Buller. Any discussion? Hearing none, call a question.
Aye.
Oh, please.
I'm glad that the letter will be sent with it, because it does state that we will educate the public on this coming snow season. Then it says City of International Falls will be giving administrative citations for the 2022 and 2023 season. So it's going to be a year for education, and that everybody you might get a citation, but it's not going to be it's going to be an educated citation, so they know what's going on. And I think it's going to help everybody out. Good policy.
Well, and since I wanted to make a comment too, but we were moving fast. I really like that this isn't anything new. This is stuff that we've always had in our policies that have just never been enforced because for whatever reason. So I'm very happy that we are not creating any new rules. These are just the rules that are in place, and we're saying that you have to do these things, or else next season there will be fines.
And it's not just our policy. There's many state laws in here that are addressed too. It's like pushing snow over the road. It's a state law that you can't do it. So, I mean, we're just reiterating the fact that there are laws out there other than just our policy that restrict you to what you can be doing with that and the hazard it could cause by doing that. So.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any other discussion? We have a motion and second. I'll call the question.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll vote yes. Motion carries 3-0. Next, we will go to the consent agenda. We have 5 license requests. The first is for Cater for You LLC, a restaurant license, Cine 5 restaurant license and a theater license, Coffee Landing Cafe, a restaurant license, Curb Appeal Lawn Care, a snowplow license, DNS Pizza Incorporated, doing business as Domino's Pizza, a restaurant license, Chair would entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion by Counselor Buller. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Counselor Deitch. Call the question.
Aye.
Aye.
And I will vote yes. Motion carries 3-0. Next, we have a land transfer agreement between the City of International Falls and Kutaska Community Action. City Attorney.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this has been discussed for some time. Kutaska building is owned by the city, and it's been subject to a 100-year lease for about 42 years. The building is aging. There's repairs that need to be done, and there are alterations that Kutaska would like to make, but they don't want to make it as a tenant. And under the current lease, there's some long-term obligations there that could impact the city adversely. So discussions have taken place, and Kutaska is interested in taking over ownership of the building and being totally responsible for all improvements and future repairs, and the city would be removed from any past or future responsibility with regard to maintaining that building or improving it or altering it in any way. And it's really kind of a win-win for everybody. There's lots of good uses that can be made of that, and I think it'll be better utilized. Their board is in favor of this, and it's been discussed at committee of the whole meetings, and so the paperwork is here. There's the land transfer agreement, which outlines the basic terms, and then there's a quitclaim deed attached where we would actually transfer it to them. There wouldn't be any monies exchanged, and that transfer would take place once it's been approved officially by both the city council and the Kutaska board.
Okay, thank you. Chair would entertain a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion by Councillor Deitch to transfer the land agreement.
Second.
We have a second by Councillor Buller. Any discussion?
I think this is the right move. We're saving money. We're not putting repairs into an old building, and we're putting it back on the tax.
Excellent. You have anything to add?
No, I agree too. From what the inspections that we've heard from everybody, I think that's things that have been done in the past, maybe some things that have been repaired by them, maybe hasn't been quite up to code according to what I hear, but at least it relieves us of that responsibility. And if they want to move forward and they want to add and they want to do whatever they want, great. It's just another building that's going to be improved. So yeah.
And I think that this goes to like the bigger conversation that we've had at council and committee of the whole meetings is the city ultimately does not want to be in a position where we don't have control of our own buildings. We had this one, which was a 100-year lease. We have the chamber building, which there's no income coming into the city. We have the senior center, which we just put more money into that. Even though the lease clearly states that it's their job to upgrade the heating and such. And when the furnaces went out, the city ended up having to put that money into that. So we're not getting out of the leases that we have, we're not getting anything, any value out of those. So these organizations, we want them to have the buildings, and the city wants to get out of holding those properties in the event that we ultimately have to do the maintenance, but we're not able to get in there and verify that the maintenance is being done. So I think that this is a good step, and I think we're still actively seeking to transfer ownership to of those other facilities as well. So we have a motion and a second. I'll call the question.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll vote yes. Motion carries 3-0. Consider the renewal of maintenance contract with Stryker ProCare Services for the 4 Physio LP15 monitors. Chair would entertain a motion for that renewal of maintenance contract.
So moved.
We have a motion by Councillor Buller. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councillor Deitch. Discussion? Call the question.
Aye.
Aye.
I'll vote yes. Motion carries 3-0. Next, we go to our Public Works meeting recommendations. Approve the design and engineering services for the Waterfront variable frequency drives, the Vfd, to high service pumps from Bolton Mink payable from the American Rescue Act funding. Chair would entertain a motion to approve that.
I so move.
We have a motion by Counselor Buller. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Deitch. Director Brokaw, do you want to bring anything up to explain what some of this stuff is? Because these get to be pretty pricey. And why we're doing them now, contrary to.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yes, the VFDs, the variable frequency drives. I'm assuming everybody noticed that this summer we had a considerable amount of water breaks, and a lot of those issues that we had was the with the tank 1 rehab at 15th Street and Industrial. Our water lines in a lot of spots, we know where our weak spots are most of the time. When we start getting spots in areas where we've never had them, the system changes. We found that when we drained the water tank down, it took a couple of days. There was a busy week and a half there where we had several breaks where water was rerouted. A lot of times people think that pressure causes the issue, an increase in pressure. This really wasn't the case. After working with Bolton and Mink and looking at the system, the reason why we found a lot of new weak spots was our high service pumps, which are 145 horsepower, were coming on so often because we didn't have the storage capacity that we normally have because we were down 500,000 gallons of water. So the pumps were coming on several times a day versus once or twice. And what was happening is it's sending a shock wave through the system. And what that is the motor starters that we have on there now are just a hard on. Whereas if a variable frequency drive, you can vary the speed of the pump, which in this application we will not. It's a slow, soft start. So it slowly comes on and comes up. So it's not that hard hammer to the system like we have right now. With the opportunity with the rescue money we got that we can use towards infrastructure cost, as we're looking through the capital improvement plan and developing that for the water plant, because has been said before, our 30-year-old water plant, our new 30-year-old water plant is 30 years old. And two of the big items that we have in that draft capital improvement plan, number one is to put VFDs on the 145 horsepower pumps that we have. Also, another one is that you'll see down there is to take a look at the water intake pipe that's in the river that hasn't been looked at in 20 years to see what kind of shape that's in. So with the availability of funds that won't come out of the enterprise side of the water, I just thought these two projects would be very good to go a long ways, especially the VFDs. The VFDs, I think, are going to make a heck of a difference on helping us avoid water breaks down the line. It's easier on the system.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any questions for the Public Works Director? Hearing none, I'll call the question.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll vote yes, motion carries 3-0. Next would be approve requesting quotes for the installation of the VFDs to the high service pumps at the water plant payable from the American Rescue Act funding. Chair would entertain that motion.
So move.
We have a motion by Counselor Deitch. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion on that one? Hearing none, call the question.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll vote yes, motion carries 3-0. Next, we have the approve the specialty professional services quote from Midco Diving and Marine Services to inspect the water plant intake at the Rainy River payable from the American Rescue Plan Act. Chair would entertain a motion to approve that funding.
So moved.
We have a motion by Counselor Buller. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Deitch. Could you explain that to us, Public Works Director Brokaw?
So basically we have a huge pipe that runs to the middle of Rainy River. It's got screens on the end of it. It's something that has not been looked at in 15 plus years. It's something that we should be looking at every 5-6 years, like we are with our elevated water tanks. It's been recommended that, it's one of the major things we need to look at is to make sure that there's nothing blocking the pipe, that the pipe is still intact. It's kind of one of them things where it's out of sight, out of mind. And so basically what they do is they go down there and they dive it. They take test the metal, they videotape everything. There's kind of a lengthy list of items that the engineers are wanting them to look at. And it's part of the capital improvement plan. It's something that we've got to do regardless, and it's an opportunity to be able to do it without it coming out of our permanent improvement fund for the water side.
Questions for,
I think there's one other thing that came out of our discussion with that too, is that we're going to try and put on a program to get a check maybe every 5 years.
Yes.
Just to make sure that, that's the source of our water out there. If there's something that is not looking good.
Yep.
We should know every 5 years, at least inspect it every 5 years. So I think that's one thing that we had talked about too. So.
I guess I have a question. I forgot to ask this when we were at the Public Works meeting, but if they go down there and they see that there's bits and pieces that need to be replaced, is this something that then we'll get a secondary quote of what the costs are for replacement or whatever?
Yep. It's basically just it's to assess the asset. It's to see what kind of shape it's in. It's the same thing with televising a sanitary sewer, or, every 5 years we put a guy in the top of the water tower with a inflatable raft, and we lower the tank, and he goes around the outside of the tank and he looks, takes pictures, and hope he doesn't put on the big pipe at the bottom. But a lot of people don't realize that is the type of stuff that you need to do on a regular basis to be able to assess, to be able to plan.
You told me that there's a boat in the water tower that they have to inflatable
Well,
boat. that
they go up there and they blow the little dinghy up, and and we lower the tank very slowly as he goes around the outside. One other thing you can do with the tank is you can also dive it. This company does, but you get the same bang for your buck. It's the scuba dive in an elevated tank is expensive due to the fact of getting everything up there and whatnot, where we don't have that luxury with the intake pipe.
I know this is slightly off subject, but with all of the videos that you watch between the sewer, the underwater for our water intake for the city, you must have some really interesting Friday nights.
I do. My wife rolls her eyes at me quite often.
I'm not volunteering to go down like that.
No.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question.
Aye.
Aye.
I'll vote yes. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Public
Thank you.
Works Director Brokaw.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you.
All right, next we go to additional 2020 licenses that include tobacco or alcohol. The first we have is DG Retail LLC, doing business as the General Dollar Store 15619. That's a cigarette license. Quarters Incorporated, doing business as Quarters Fuel and Car Wash. What license was that? Was that gasoline pump cigarettes, I assume?
Gas and cigarette, that is correct.
Okay. And then we have Super One Foods, a cigarette license, restaurant license, and a 3-2 off-sale license. VFW Peter Graham, 2948, a pool table license, club license, gambling license, restaurant license, Sunday liquor license, and a jukebox license. Chair would entertain a motion to approve those license renewals.
So move.
We have a motion by Councillor Deitch.
Second.
We have a second by Councillor Buller. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the question.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll vote yes. Motion carries 3-0. Any other business to come before the council? Hearing none, we'll go to the reports of the administrator, attorney, and department heads. City administrator.
Mayor and council, nothing specific, working on a few projects, be coming up at future councils.
Okay. City attorney.
Another real busy day in court today. We had 40 city criminal cases in district court today. And just finished shortly before the meeting started. A couple of those were our blight cases that are moving forward. We had several enter guilty pleas to not fixing the issue during the time frame that had been requested. And in those two cases, they've been making some progress, but they're not done yet. But they actually entered pleas of guilty. What we're doing on most of these is we're doing what's called a stay of adjudication, where an individual pleads guilty that they didn't correct the problem in time. But the judge, on a first offender, we oftentimes use this, the judge doesn't accept the plea of guilty. So there's really not a conviction on their record, but there are conditions to the stay. One, in all these cases, we make them pay the administrative fee of $150. Secondly, they have to finish, if they haven't already finished, they have to finish the completion correction of the issues to the satisfaction of the fire marshal. And in the two cases we did today, they have to do that within 30 days. And then there can't be any similar violation for 1 year from today's date when they entered this plea of guilty. If they don't follow through on any of those things, then they go back to court, and we have the option of asking the judge to lift the stay of adjudication, enter a conviction, and impose additional sanctions, which can be a fine of up to $1,000 and jail time of up to 90 days. So it gives us a real strong hammer if they don't keep their promises to fix it all up. And so that's what we are doing with those people that acknowledge that they messed up, but they're working with us to try to fix it. They just didn't work with us quickly enough. And so that's where we go. If they respond right away to the tagging of the building and then even the administrative notice, it never gets to the court level where we do a criminal complaint. So we're making some progress on those. Been also very active. We're in the middle of negotiations with the various unions that the city employees belong to, and that's occupying a lot of our time, and we're making some progress there, and hopefully we'll have equitable contracts with the three unions before the end of the year. That's all that I have.
Next, we'll go to department heads. I have asked our HR department head, Sherry, to come forward and just kind of discuss what options the city council has to be in compliance with the new OSHA standards.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I want to thank you for this opportunity to be able to give you some additional information on the Occupational Safety and Health Administration's emergency temporary standard. So this came out about a week and a half ago, where OSHA said employers of 100 or more, and we did determine that the city would qualify as an employer of 100 or more. When you take a look at all the on-call, the part-time, and all the other employees, we're more than 100. So potentially we would have two options available to us. So we could either require that all employees be fully vaccinated, and that has to occur on or before January 4th of 2022. Or we could implement a standard where starting December 5th, all employees who are not vaccinated would have to begin masking immediately. So they would have to wear face masks that meet certain requirements. And then beginning on January 4th, they would also be subject to weekly testing in order to be able to report to work. So those are the two options that would be available to us. Just wanted to make you aware that that is out there. I also want to make you aware that there are currently lawsuits pending regarding the entire thing. So it remains to be seen if it will be take effect in December or not. But it is something that we could have to move quickly on. I've been working with the city administrator as well as the fire chief to implement some internal policies and processes should we have to move forward with one or both of these actions. And I'm creating draft policies for either option.
So before us right now, I mean, out of the HR committee meeting, it was suggested that we have the opportunity to bring it to tonight's meeting to take action, because this is the last regular council meeting we have before December 5th, which we have to have a policy in place, whether it is to fully mask or I'm sorry, fully vaccinate, or to have vaccinations, a new mask policy, and a testing policy for the city. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we also knew that we were going to be missing 2 council members. We also are well aware that this is going to be a controversial conversation that not just the city of International Falls has, but PCA is going to be having this, the school district's going to be having this, the county is going to be having this. It's not if you have 100 full-time employees, it's if your organization pays 100 people. Our council members are paid by the city a very high price of $300 a month. So we have 5 people sitting at this table that fit into it. We also have on-call firefighters, which if they attend one fire a year, they're going to get some form of compensation. If it's $1, they are now a paid employee from the city of International Falls. So we have over 100, I believe we're closer to 120 employees of the city. And this isn't going to be an easy conversation, but I also didn't want to have the conversation because there was a consensus at the HR meeting of the 2 members that were there, and 2 of us are here right now. So we kind of knew we could pass it tonight, but we want to make sure that we have conversation with the entire council. And I don't know how Walt's going to feel about this. I also don't know how Councillor Holden or Councillor Kraus is going to feel about this. So I want to make sure that we're having an open conversation about this. We'll schedule within the next week a special city council meeting to have the 2 draft policies available for the councilors to review in advance of any decision that the council makes, because I want to make sure that everyone is knowledgeable about what 2 options we have. It's not both, it's not none. We have to come up with a policy, and I think it's been outlined pretty well. The likelihood of any policy that we put into place, it going into practice, is probably slim at this point, but that doesn't mean that we don't have to do our due diligence to come up with a policy. So we'll get that information out to the council members to be able to review before we have a special council meeting. Does anyone have any questions for Sherry specifically regarding this new mandate that we have to move forward with?
I do think it's important that we reiterate, we had our first meeting on this and we did talk about it, and it's moving forward.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you, Sherry.
All right. Thank you. I have some copies if anyone.
Oh, sure.
No, I have a copy already.
I lost mine. I was just kidding. You gave me like 50 copies of stuff.
I will take one, Sherry, for one. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sherry. All right. In your packets, we have your police monthly report. Chief Koscheck, do you have anything to bring forward today?
I don't.
Okay. We also have the fire and EMS report. So that brings us to the report of the mayors, council committees, boards, and commissions. Anybody have anything to bring forward on that?
But I think we have covered everything in Public Works.
Okay, I have one thing that came in. I got, and I believe all of the counselors got an email from Servants of Shelter. And the second I got that email in from Servants of Shelter, I immediately contacted Betty and I'm like, we can't do this. So open meeting law states that all 5 city councilors or even 3 of us cannot be at any outside venue of the city council. And we were invited to Servants and Shelter to have a listening session on the 18th. The city administrator has contacted Servants and Shelter and got a better understanding of what the offer was to the council. And they're requesting one of us to be at the Servants of Shelter office at 4 o'clock this Thursday, and another one of us to go to the Servants of Shelter actual shelter to listen to some of the people that they have that are temporarily housed there. So I would be more than willing to do it. Is there one of the other members of the council that would be interested in going to? And I have been to the shelter itself, so I would be more than willing to go to the office if someone would like to go to the shelter at 4 o'clock on Thursday. So
Not Thursday also.
okay, I can be in 2 places at once. I'll call and let them know, and I'll reach out to Councillor Holden and Councillor Kraus to see if they're going to be back in town by then.
I've already contacted her, told her that I would be in contact.
Okay. So I'll reach out to one of those 2 and see if they can meet at the other, but if not, we will definitely have at least one representative there because I would be more than willing to do that. All right. And I have only one other thing. So I don't know if you guys are aware, but I went to Florida this last week, and because like our public works director, who has the most bizarre Friday night lifestyle of watching sewer videos, I went to the Daytona Beach Shores council meeting on Tuesday, and it was the most informative meeting I have sat through in forever, because I saw the parallels so fierce of the things that they're dealing with of a city of only 4,000 people. However, they have so much more to offer. They don't have any borders to the county. Every border that they have is to another city. So you go right from one city into the next, but they were still dealing with annexation issues, annexing from other cities rather than from the county. They were dealing with how to deal with the vacant buildings that they have in the city that have sat vacant for the last 20 years. Specifically, a 300 building or 300 room condominium, because they're having a hard time finding housing. They're dealing with how to regulate food trucks, and they have people actively working on projects that they don't know if they'll ever get to. It was the most interesting thing. I had a chance to sit down with the mayor, Mayor Miller. Her and I had a great conversation. They had just that day hired a new city planner to work on some housing issues that they have. One of the things that we're looking at doing, although we're not looking at hiring a city planner for a day-to-day activity, but for project-based things like where should we put some housing into our community, what makes the most sense. It was a real eye-opener that no matter how big or how small you are, we all have the exact same issues. And I just found it so incredibly interesting and wonderful to be able to connect with another city that's outside Minnesota. And all of the things that they brought to their council, whenever they had a question, they had contacted the League of Florida Cities. It's so similar. No matter where we're at, we're all in the same boat. So it was just a neat thing. I don't think every time I go on vacation, I'm going to go to city council meetings, but it was really, really fun to do at least that one time. All right, we'll go to audience. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to bring anything forward at this time. All right, so we have correspondence. International Falls Public Library meeting information was in your packet from November 10th. International Falls Recreation Commission meeting from November 17th. City Hall will be closed this Thursday or next Thursday and Friday for Thanksgiving holiday. And our next regular city council meeting will be December 6th at 5:30. And just a reminder, there will be a special city council meeting placed at some point between now and then just to handle the specific issue for HR. So with that being said, this meeting is adjourned.